Reactions have continued to trail the judgment of the Federal High Court sitting in Umuahia, which last Friday struck down Section 84, subsection 12 of the newly amended Electoral Act, which President Muhammadu Buhari had written to the National Assembly to delete. The court, in the judgment delivered by Justice Evelyn Anyadike, held that appointees of government seeking to contest elections are only required to resign at least 30 days to the date of the election, and that any other law that mandated such appointees to resign or leave office at any time before that was unconstitutional. Shortly after the judgment, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, issued a statement that the federal government will comply with the judgment.
Now to discuss the judgment by the Federal High Court nullifying Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act 2022 is President of the African Bar Association, Hannibal Uwaifo. I want to say thank you very much. Please, let's just get ourselves started. What do you make of the particular judgment?
Thank you very much. To begin with, I am wondering why is it that when we are about to have elections, that's when we keep amending the Electoral Act. It's unfortunate that the National Assembly that claim to have been elected by the people cannot legislate stable laws that can lead the country on and on for years to come. So while I may not agree with the judgment, but I think that the National Assembly is part of this whole confusion. And it continues to do these things, and not only about the electoral, but so many other laws we have in Nigeria. So my advice is that the National Assembly should listen to the people more than about their own political interests. Because these are the problems that are playing out all over this place. Of course, we know that the President Muhammadu Buhari had earlier requested that the National Assembly delete that part of the Electoral Act. I'll be bound to popular acclamation that, look, enough of all this, enough of all this the crap they were doing, playing hide and seek game, because we wouldn't sign the Electoral Act, the National. So the back and forth came. The president just wanted to bow to it. He said, I've signed the Electoral Act, but delete this. And here we are with the court judgment. But let me now quickly go straight to the point. I totally disagree with the court. Very respectfully, I disagree with the court. We have Section 84, that what Section 84 clearly states, it's for political appointees. And the Constitution does not talk about political appointees. Section 66, Section 182, and Section 107, Section 137 talks about public servants. It doesn't talk about political appointees. So the National Assembly, we all know, by the Constitution, is the only authority that have right to make laws. For us, as far as I'm concerned, that law is valid. Because political appointees can be appointed today and removed tomorrow, are not public servants. In fact, in a litany of judgments, they have not been public servants. So I think the court is wrong. And then, if you see the reaction of the federal government through the Attorney General, very respectfully, it shows clearly that all these things are still emerged in politics. It's all political game. All right. You have to quickly rush. In any case, in making out this case, the plaintiff forgot to know that the National Assembly, who is making the law, is supposed to be a defendant in the matter. The National Assembly was not a defendant. The Independent National Electoral Commission, that is supposed to implement the laws, the Electoral Act, is not a defendant. So it was just between two parties who had interest in the matter. And here we are, a fait accompli. I think there should be an appeal.
Now, the PDP has rejected this judgment and said it is exploring the option of reporting the Attorney General of the Federation and even Justice Evelyn Anyadike to the Nigerian Bar Association and the National Judicial Council, respectively. But what does this say of the Nigerian legal system, where people now doubt its integrity and impartiality in judging matters? Well,
all of you are part of the Nigerian situation, so your guess is as good as mine. You are more into investigative journalism. You see all these things happen than if us are lawyers or are players in the system. Unfortunately, like I said at the beginning, this whole thing is all political games that had brought the country to its knees. Don't forget, this country has not moved forward. In fact, the country is getting worse. The country is at crossroads, everything is down. So anybody saying, I had an interview a couple of weeks ago, and I said, anybody saying that the country has moved forward, any political leader who said they should clap for him should bury his head in shame. This country has not moved anywhere. We're just going backward and backward. There's no light, there's no water, there's no security. What we see are politicians, just playing games, gladiators as gladiators. So I believe that all these things are political games which should stop now, because we are getting to a point where the people are going to react so violently. I'm not advocating for violent reactions, but I'm saying that it happened before. Maybe the one that will happen will be worse, because we just have a group of people who are insensitive, who are not ready to play by the rules, who are just absolutely wicked, who are just after money and their own personal interest. As bad as the country is, politicians still have the effrontery and the right to go around offering themselves for these type of positions that a lot of us know they are not even qualified for. But they will get there anyway, because it's by hook or by crook. So some of these things, we need to start looking at it. For me, in answering the question, it is not about reporting, PDP reporting. PDP is part of the play. They are playing their own games as well. And their game is as sinful as that of the APC. Unless they sit down and put their acts together, we are going to run into a lot of problems in 2023. So it's not about shouting wolf or going to report the attorney general to anybody. The PDP needs to be part of the process. In fact, when this whole game was going on, the PDP should have calculated that this was where it would end up, and should have asked the court to be joined as a party, since it's also going to be affected by the Electoral Act. But he kept quiet. The judgment had come, you say you want to go and report a general to which MBA? Is MBA the one that appointed Attorney General? You're only talking about whether it's ethical or not. If a judgment is given by a court of law, what do you want the Attorney General to do? Whether it's the game or not. So yes, I don't see any sense in saying you want to report the Attorney General to the MBA. The only thing they can do is put forces together with other positive forces within the polity and do a proper appeal for us to get to the root of this matter. That's what I think should happen. Reporting justice, Josiah indicated to the National Judicial Council, well, if there's any misconduct the feel she has committed, and if they can prove it. Otherwise, what we are seeing is just a normal court process, despite some flaws which I've seen. But I'm not ready to discuss a judge and how he arrived at judgment before the public. I'm a bar leader and I'm a senior member of the bar. So I don't expect the judge to misbehave. I think it's just a normal judicial process. But if they find any, then they are free to report to the agency.
And it's quite unfortunate, because the National Assembly was just starting to shake off their rubber stamp image that they had been tagged with. Do you think that they will appeal? Do you think they have the temerity and the strength and even the thought process to know how it will play out? Because you did say that they initially did not think it through properly. Do you think that they will do so this time and get this Section 84 in the Electoral Act?
Well, that's what we are all hoping for. But at the end of the day, this is just a tricky game. The National Assembly have the power to make laws. The the courts have the right to nullify laws which are not in accordance with the Constitution. But what we have here is two different things. Like I said, I don't see the bearing between the sections of the Constitution which I referred to earlier on and Section 84.12 of the Electoral Act. They are not the same. Political appointee is not a public servant. By any means, it's not a public servant. So I don't see the. So I think what the National Assembly should do is probably go back to their drawing board, look at call their draftsmen together. Maybe they try to rework it, or at best join forces with the INEC and with political leaders, those who are positively disposed to free Nigeria from this image of a country in perpetual crisis. If they are able to do that, that's fine. But don't forget, the National Assembly is full of cross currents. They say this today, tomorrow they do another thing. They are not stable. This National Assembly is full of, with due respect, men of unstable character. So where do we go from here? Otherwise, we won't be here. There are so many laws that are caked. There are so many things that need to be done. They are not done. The other day, we saw a show of shame in the National Assembly where somebody running for position came to the National Assembly. Who does that in a sane country? So, well, that's the way it is. Unfortunately, I'm a Nigerian, and I'm going to continue to have my views.
All right, I'm glad you were here to hear your view. You've mentioned, as a senior member of the bar, looking at what is happening with the judiciary, because a lot of political pundits have said they are almost like the fulcrum of this democracy. Whichever way it swings is up to them. As we get closer to the political cycles, and we'll be seeing more judgments coming from courts like this, what role do you think the judiciary should play in ensuring that we strengthen our democracy and not weaken it by several of these cases that have been taken to courts?
Thank you very much. That's why I said it just now that, the press has a lot of muscle to also shaping our democracy and all that. If you do your job, or if every other person does the job. First and foremost, the issue of the judiciary becoming a problem is not new. It's now becoming almost an embarrassment. It is not so much so that that's how the judiciary is in Nigeria, unfortunately. I was telling someone the other day, people say a lot of things. I said, look, you probably did not know that we are probably one of the most educated chief justice in recent times. So how many people know that? People are just chief justice of Nigeria, one of the most educated CJN we have ever had in recent times. So at the Supreme Court level, I don't have any problems with that, because that's an apex court. And it's very difficult, I must tell you, to go through the Supreme Court for anything. But at the lower court, I think the heads of those courts should now, at this stage in which we are, from ex parte injunction that they take from Water High Court through to medical this thing, to different places, they are doing all sorts of things. We need to have a practice direction. If a matter is going on here in Lagos, no judge in the Ikorodu has right to issue or preside over any such matter. If the governorship elections or the senatorial election or whatever is happening in Oka, a judge in Gusau has no power. The heads of this court must now give clear practice direction. You must file your case where your matter is. And that is done what we grew up to know as lawyers. So this idea of waking up and you just go to one obscure place that's far from where the action is happening. There's something going on in Lagos, you just simply, the next day you hear there's one judgment from Duse or one judgment from Kebbi. Ever a matter that the people, they are not even, so we need to...
How do we stop that? Because it is something that has been happening and is likely to continue.
That's what I'm saying, that we need to push for the heads of courts to have a practice direction that says clearly what their judges can do or what their judges cannot do. The media needs to push for this, and that they will be held accountable. The media need to push that heads of courts will be held accountable if this event starts playing out. Because a court can easily give an order that will throw this country into confusion and say, stop the presidential election, stop the vote count. These things, we are playing with fire. And everybody is sitting down thinking that, maybe we get out of, the problems are exhaustible. You get to a level, the thing just tilts over. So you need to crowd as the media. On our part, we continue to say what we need to say. As judiciary, we're not, as a bar, I'm not used to criticizing judges and judiciary in public, but I'm used to saying facts, which I know are clearly facts. And that's that. This idea of ex parte injunctions, we need to stop it. This idea of getting judgments from courts that are not supposed to hear those matters or that are far away from where the action is, we need to stop it, and they can only be stopped by the heads of court. And examples must be made. Yeah. With one or two of the judges for them to get it. And then, of course, when it becomes like that, then, of course, when they take you to the security agency... We've
unfortunately run out of time. Yes. We've run out of time. Thank you so much for coming and having this very great discussion with us. President of the African Bar Association, Hannibal Uwaifo, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.